Hello.
Hi, is this Dean?
Oh, hello. Is this Alex?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Alex. Sorry I missed your call.
No problem. So this is a good time to chat.
Yeah, go ahead. What can I tell you? What can I talk to you about?
Awesome. Yeah, well, I'm just, it's November, so I'm really just, I'm curious, like, being a men's rights organization, like, what does November mean to you?
Well, let's see. That's kind of interesting. An interesting question. Obviously, we weren't involved in creating the original Movember, although let me look, because I seem to recall that we ran an article a couple of years ago,
Hmm.
believe it or not, by one of the people who had founded Movember. Anyway, I mean, what it means to us is we think it's pretty cool. I mean,
Hmm.
it's, some people might say that, you know, it's symbolic, it doesn't really mean anything. I know I've seen, complaints that some guys are just wearing mustaches because they hear grow a mustache in November, but they don't know what started it. But, to the best of my knowledge, it started as in Australia, and it did start as a way to raise awareness for men's health issues. I guess sort of like the Komen Foundation Pink Ribbon campaign to raise breast cancer awareness. Although
Hmm.
from everything I've seen, and I think we even just put up a video about it today, um, uh, they've tried to expand and be more inclusive and raise awareness of all men's health issues, not just one. Because I think they started with a prostate cancer
Yeah.
focus, but they've gotten away from that from what I can see from their website, which I find encouraging because prostate cancer is not the only issue that is a health issue by far. It's not
Hmm.
even, it's an important issue, but it's not the only men's health issue. And there are a lot of issues that men face health-wise that people should be more paying more attention. Governments should be paying more attention to. Researchers should be paying more attention to. And so, yeah, we think it's cool. Anything that helps get awareness out there.
Hmm. And what would you say would be like the most dire men's health issues that we should be focusing on?
Well, okay, other than prostate cancer, which is in fact very deadly when it's young men, particularly who contract it. Um, despite the statistics saying that women are more likely to suffer from heart disease than we used to think, it still remains that men are at higher risk for heart disease than women, at least at this time.
Mm.
Um, Mental health issues are particularly important. I think almost all of us at AVFM would agree that mental health issues are hugely important.
Hmm.
Most people, for whatever reason, are not aware, for example, that men are about, here in North America, they're about 4 times as likely to commit suicide as women are.
Mm.
Okay, it's an enormous disparity. It's not even close. Men are at very high risk for suicide. This is all age groups: young men, old men, middle-aged men. In the wake of divorce, men are actually 10 times more likely to kill themselves than women are. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's the truth, and we can give you stats to back that up if you need them. The point is that guys, when they're despondent or depressed or they feel they have no way out, are a lot more likely to check out with a gun or a noose or whatever than women are. And instead of asking for help, they just say, screw this, and they're gone.
Hmm.
Um, one of our fellow men's rights activists, one of your fellow Canadians, Earl Silverman, killed himself just earlier this year because he'd given up in despondency on his efforts to start a battered men's shelter. That, of course, is another issue. I mean, I don't know how much people want to consider things like domestic violence a men's health issue, but in point of fact, massive research shows that there are far more male victims of domestic violence than women are, or not, than people think. They're about as likely to be victims of domestic violence as men are.
Mm-hmm.
And without awareness of that, you know, even medical professionals and psychiatric professionals don't pay enough attention to it. They don't take it seriously, and they ought to. If a guy's in an abusive relationship, that's a mental health problem and a potential threat to his own health. So, yeah, but I would say that outside of things like prostate cancer and heart disease, we don't spend enough time thinking about men's, for want of a better word, psychic well-being. When men are unhappy and despondent or desperate and despairing, that's when things go badly for them, and they're more likely to commit suicide. Men are more likely to develop problems with alcohol and drug addiction, which you can decide whether you want to call that mental health or something else, but men are much more likely to develop that problem, and that doesn't seem to be a character flaw. It seems to be something in, well, we believe it's something in the way society tends to treat guys who are having problems. So they retreat into medical, you know, they retreat into pharmaceuticals instead of, you know, getting better help than that.
And yeah, like I wanted to ask, you do mention that guys are more likely to kind of just say screw this and kind of check out when they're facing this kind of grief.
Yep.
And is it because men have been culturally conditioned to not really express their feelings and to more just to suppress them?
Let me think real carefully about my answer to that.
Okay.
Because there's stereotypes about men not being willing to express their feelings that are not entirely true, not entirely accurate. Yeah, men are less likely to cry. They're less likely to sit around and emote and express their feelings. But we do culturally, and that may be okay because men have different ways of dealing with stress. There's a real good psychotherapist we work with named Tom Golden. He's internationally famous, and he says when men are healing because they're hurt, they need to do things. They need to be active. They need to have a plan of action. And it's when they don't feel they have a plan of action that they start feeling lost and suicidal and depressed. So I think maybe our society doesn't do enough to let men express their grief in their own way, because they don't have to do it like women do it. I mean, they can do it like women do it, which is sitting around with their friends and crying and talking, but in any case, they need to have respect for their feelings. And certainly society, when a guy gets divorced, when a guy loses his job, when a guy's having serious financial struggles, yeah, we definitely tend to make fun of him and be cruel to him and call him a loser and a bum, and loser especially comes out a lot. And when's the last time you heard a woman called a loser? It's pretty rare. We throw that epithet at men. So he's down, and we figured the solution is to kick him some more when he's down, rather than try and give him a hand up and help him formulate a plan to get better. I had a guy talked out of suicide not too long ago, and one of the first things that we did was formulate a plan of action. Is how are you going to get out of this situation? And once he had a plan of action, suddenly the suicidal impulses went away, and he started being able to focus on, okay, how do I still put one step forward? How am I going to figure this out? How am I going to get through this situation? And, you know, I'm happy to say he's in great shape today, and picked up a good steady job that he likes real well, and all that. So I think I just rambled and lost my place.
It's okay. It's all good though. But yeah, why is it that you know, society treats guys this way? Where did it stem from?
Well, some people say feminism, but I don't think that's an entirely fair thing. If I were going to knock feminism, I would say it's because they started the dialogue on gender, but they kind of left men out of the conversation.
Mm.
Because it seems to me that for the most part, if you look at it, while we talk endlessly about opportunities for women and equality for women and helping women, men still are living by and are expected to live by a sort of 1950s code of if you're not making enough money, you're a bum, you're a loser, you're a slacker, you're expected to provide for your family, and if you fail to provide, there's something wrong with you. And these are very common social attitudes that I've seen from liberal-minded people. I've seen it from conservative-minded people, from everyday people. I've even experienced it. A few years ago, I'm fine now, but a few years ago when I was down and out and functionally homeless, when you're living on a friend's couch, you're pretty much homeless, right? At least not on the streets, but I remember that was kind of the moment when I discovered who my true friends were, because there was a lot of people in my environment who, geez, I'd lost my job, I'd lost my wife, I'd lost everything. And there were people who were just savagely nasty to me about it and thought what I needed was an ass kicking because there was something wrong with me, whereas the friends who were there for me, well, the friends who were there for me saved my life. No question about it. And I find that that's a common experience a lot of guys who are down and out go through. You suddenly discover who your real friends are. So, yeah, I think that men in current society, in Canada, in much of the U.S., I spent a lot of time in Canada, although I'm U.S. based. I've spent a lot of time in Canada, went all over the U.S. I think we are afraid to see ourselves as human beings with vulnerabilities. And that doesn't mean we're just like women, because I don't think we are. I think men and women are different. But we are still human. We are still frail. We are still vulnerable. There's a really great line that I like, which is that woman's strength is the illusion of her weakness, and man's weakness is his illusion of strength. We don't see men as human, and therefore when they fail, we say, when a woman fails, we say, what did we do wrong? When a man fails, we say, what did he do wrong? We're not treating men like human beings. We're not treating ourselves like human beings. We're not treating each other like human beings. And that's what I think the ultimate answer is. Men need to be able to say, hey, I matter. And I have value as a human being outside of my status with a career or a job or a family. So, yeah.
Interesting. I mean, at the same time, like there's this growing narrative of like the feminization of society, and men are kind of, this narrative saying that men are kind of encouraged to more and more adopt like feminine qualities. Like, do you see this happening at all, and like how do you see it affecting guys?
That's another one that deserves a careful answer. Because I definitely, and we definitely don't embrace this whole mentality of stop acting girly, stop being a sissy, blah, 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 and the supposed feminization. That kind of thing, no. We don't necessarily need men to be stereotypically macho more. I don't think that that's, let me start over. The basic answer to your question is yes. I think in schools, boys are pressured to be like girls in the sense that, for example, they're expected to sit and be quiet and listen and pay attention, which girls tend to be very good at and boys tend not to be very good at.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, we tend to do things like medicate them or tell them that their energetic rambunctiousness is bad and try to not let them have their competitive instincts and their competitive drive and their need for physical activity. In that sense, yes. I do think there's a feminization going on. We also have a tendency to knock on men for not expressing their feelings, okay? But frequently when we're saying that, we're saying like women do. Women tend to emote in a specific way of, well, the phrase that psychologists have used is tend and befriend. My friend, she's crying, she's upset, she's had a fight with her boyfriend, whatever. Her friends, her sister, her mother, whatever, gather around, they talk, they cry, they eat ice cream, they laugh, they emote together. Guys don't do that, and I don't think they necessarily, as a rule, right? There's always exceptions. As a rule, guys don't do that. But guys tend to want to go and do things, work on their car, watch a game with their friends, figure out life strategies for how they're going to deal with their situation, and get their emotions and interactions out that way. And we tend to say, like, you're not expressing your feelings. Well, yeah, they are. We just aren't expressing a man's way of doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
And we should have more respect for that. We shouldn't expect them to be like women, even though just like women, they're human and they have vulnerabilities, but they're sometimes different and they need to do things their way. And we should respect that more.
Mm-hmm. Because I interviewed Joe Rogan actually like a while back, and he argued that a lot of guys are suffering because society is kind of discouraging these sort of like instinctual male traits, like you said, like guys want to get up and do things, and work on a car, or even in the school system, guys want to get up and run around. Like he's arguing that society is kind of discouraging those traits and kind of like almost like forcing these feminine qualities onto them, and they don't know what to do because instinctually that's not really natural for them.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? Like, you see that happening, kind of?
I would agree with Joe on that, although I would add what I think is an important caveat. We should always remember that there's maybe 10-20% of guys who are a little more feminine in their way of thinking or acting, and that's okay, and that there's maybe 10-20% of women who are more like guys when it comes to those things,
Right.
tomboyish girls, and that's okay. But yeah, I would otherwise agree that for most boys, Joe's really on the money with that observation. Girls and boys are competitive, but they're competitive in different ways. Boys like to be physical. They like rough and tumble. They like competition. They like things like who can get to fix this problem fastest, who can do the best. And schools often these days discourage competition in the very things that boys just love doing. So yeah, Joe's right on the money there. As long as we remember, hey, if you're a guy who's not like that, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. You aren't a fag. Oh, so if you're gay, that's also okay. That's
right, yeah.
that's not the point. There's nothing wrong with you if you're different. But yeah, on the whole, guys are not respected basically for their masculinity, and I think and what tends to make most boys different from girls, and we should have more respect for that.
And so, like, in that context, like, the whole November mustache, like, do you see that kind of almost like a slightly, like, almost like a slight kind of return of masculinity, or like a kind of, it's almost like an activist thing in a way, like it's your guys kind of embracing their masculinity again, and mustache is obviously a symbol of that.
Sure. I mean, Okay, dirty little secret. I don't like mustaches. But but that's a personal style choice, right? I don't
Hmm.
wear jewelry either. Well, except my wedding ring. Um, uh, but I wear a full beard, so I'm like, what are you, sissies? Grow the whole beard, damn it. But that's please don't quote that out of context. I am kidding.
Of course.
Um, but yeah, no, look, just to be crass about it, women have boobs, guys have facial hair. Sure, guys should have facial hair. I think men should wear their facial hair. That's why I wear my beard. Um, and by the way, I think it's wicked cool when you see pictures going up on the internet and women are putting on little pictures of themselves with fake mustaches to show support. That's cool too. I like that. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's facial hair is for the most part a uniquely man thing, and sure, why not? Why wouldn't you wear your facial hair? It's supposed to be there.
Hmm.
And yeah, I guess it's activism of a sort. I mean, yeah, sure, it's activism. It's not directly, banging on Stephen Harper's office door and say do something about this, but it's definitely raising awareness and saying, hey, men matter too, and there's issues here. And yeah, sure, it's sort of a return to masculinity, if
Hmm.
in that sense. I wish they'd go whole hog and grow the beards out.
Right. Because I know that for a while, mustaches were kind of looked on negatively.
Yeah,
Like,
personal. What they were, and to be honest, I'm not a big fan of them either. I really actually do think, personally, you should either go whole hog or not at all. To me, it seems like halfway. Just to be honest with you, one of the reasons I also wear my beard is because I don't like shaving every day. So
hmm.
the mustache seems like the worst of both worlds. I still have to shave everything every day, but I've also still got a soup catcher on my lip. It's like, come on, man, grow the whole thing out. But, um, all kidding aside, I forgot the question I was answering.
I guess just the mustache and like
Oh,
if it.
yeah, oh, it had a negative connotation. Yeah, I don't know why. I think it caught on in the gay community, and 20 years, 30 years ago, guys were afraid to be considered gay, so maybe that's kind of where that stigma came from. But
Hmm.
dude, it's 2013. Nobody seriously thinks that way anymore. I don't think, anyway. Um, Gay, straight, what does it matter? If you want to wear a mustache, wear a mustache. I'll tell you one mustache I really love is that character Ron Swanson on
Oh yeah,
Parks and Recreation. Now that's a mustache, boy. If I
that's
could
a
grow a
mustache.
mustache like that, all right, I'd wear it.
I think he's like the de facto like ambassador for November.
He's awesome, man. He's one of my favorite characters. I watched that show just for him. He's so damn funny.
Yeah. Like going back to the whole feminization thing. Like I know, like there's been a lot written about how men are increasingly there's pressure on them to kind of groom themselves in a way they've never groomed themselves before, like manscaping and all that, an increase in like cosmetic products for men. Like, do you see this as like a positive trend, or can it be like detrimental to guys in a way?
Well, in terms of increasing emphasis on men's grooming, in general, and this goes back to the men's health thing, we are seeing significant increases in body image issues, feelings of low self-esteem because they don't have perfect bodies and perfect looks. And
Hmm.
so to the extent that any young men are going down that path and starting to get unrealistic expectations of being super sexy, perfect, six-pack ab, groomed impeccably at all times, if they get obsessed with it like some girls do, I don't think that's good for girls. I don't think it's good for boys either.
Hmm.
But otherwise, while personally I don't relate, I'm less of a metrosexual, as they say, than a retrosexual.
Right.
I really don't. I don't get into it. But sure, if guys want to look nice and aren't obsessing over it, yeah, it's cool.
Hmm.
If they just want to look nice, cut their hair a certain way, cut their beards a certain way. I don't get the whole shave all your body hair off thing. I don't know. That seems going a little too far to me. But as long as it's not ruling your life, why not?
Yeah, as long as it's not kind of really affecting you psychologically to the point where you're kind of obsessing about it. And
That's right. Otherwise, every girl's crazy about a sharp-dressed man, right?
right. So yeah, tell me, like, what's I guess, like, what's next for the men's rights movement? Like, where do you see it going? And
This
is
year,
there?
this year has been a pretty banner year for us in terms of raising awareness of a lot of issues, especially in the areas of sexual assault and domestic violence. And while we'll continue to focus on those areas because we don't think people have paid enough attention to male victims in that area, but I think, I mean, I've been talking with Paul, the publisher, and some other folks about it. We may be seeing a greater push on homelessness and poverty. Uh, the overwhelming majority of the long-term homeless population, the street population, are men.
Mm,
By far they are. There's something like 70 to 80% of your homeless population. Walk around the streets of Toronto sometime. I was just there a few weeks ago, and look for the homeless people, and you will find most of the homeless people sleeping on the sidewalks are male people.
oh yeah.
And look sometime. Just notice sometime. It's,
Hmm.
it's it's there in the statistics, and it's there if you just open your eyes and start looking. So we'll probably be working more to draw attention to that as well, and get guys to care about this, and get people yes, there's such a thing as a bum, or whatever, who just won't work. But the truth is, most homeless guys are, they're suffering from mental problems. They've maybe lost everything in a divorce. They can't get a job to save their lives. And especially once you are homeless, good luck. How you going to shower and shave and get a nice suit when you are literally sleeping in a dumpster? And these are people who need our help and our compassion for the most part, not our contempt or just looking the other way and maybe tossing a loony at them. Um, you know, Governments and people in general need to be paying more attention. It's amazing how many charities you will find that are there to help homeless women, or homeless women and children. They'll put women and children together and like they're the same thing. And meanwhile, you hit the streets. Who's actually out there on those streets? Aside from the occasional
Hmm.
bag lady, it's mostly guys of all
Hmm.
races. So yeah, we'll probably be putting more emphasis on that. But we also have no shortage of issues to talk about in general. So um, there you go. Yeah, I think 2014 we'll be talking more about guys who are down and out and need our help.
Hmm. And the reason that it's mostly men that are on the streets, is it because they just don't have the same support systems that are available for women?
Um, well, it is true that men are somewhat more likely to become drug addicted, and the majority of the homeless are alcohol or drug addicted. But I firmly believe that the main problem is the lack of support systems.
Hmm.
Men are invisible when it comes to society's compassion. It's kind of assumed they can take care of themselves. So, talk to a homeless guy sometime, and if he's not mentally disabled, you might be shocked. You might be talking to somebody with a damn college degree who's got a story to tell you about how now that he's here, he can't get out. Because he reeks, because he hasn't been able to take a shower in 3 weeks. He's living on the streets. He can't shave. He doesn't have any decent clothes. Nobody's going to hire him. And no, there is no support system, or very little. If you get lucky, there'll be a soup kitchen maybe by your local Catholic church there. But for the most part, support services aren't there. Or they wind up being focused on women rather than treating everybody equally. So yeah.
Hmm. And I mean, you know, the whole more support services being available for women, and you know, also the feminization of society. Like, I'm wondering like where this comes from. Like, is this a result of feminism and kind of the pendulum swinging too much in the feminist direction, or?
Uh, to be honest with you, I think that would be oversimplifying.
Hmm.
Although feminists, I believe, are part of the problem, but I stress on the words part of,
Mm.
not the. You know, everybody in the world stops calling themselves a feminist. If everybody in the world stops calling themselves a feminist right now, most of these issues don't go away. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um, what was the question again?
I just like all these problems, like, you know, like support services for men, to the feminization of society. Like, is this a result of feminism?
Oh, what is it a result of? Yeah, feminism
Yeah,
is
like
part
where
of
does it
it.
come from?
Feminism is part of it, especially because they're still focused on the narrative of women as victims, even as guys are, you know, suffering from higher unemployment rates, higher suicide levels, higher homelessness rates, um, shorter lifespans, significantly shorter lifespans. They're falling out of education like flies. Um, right now, at current trends, women are soon going to be outnumbering guys 2 to 1 in college.
Mm-hmm.
And feminism is continuing with the narrative of women as victim, women need help, women are under attack, women need help. Men's problems are invisible in the face of all this. So they're part of it. But I think another is the old school, or what I would call the conservative mentality of, I say this is an area where we would agree with a lot of feminists, of guys need to be tough, guys need to be self-sufficient, guys, they think of themselves as utilities, and if they aren't of utility to anybody, they're worthless. And they
Mm-hmm.
even internalize that message on themselves. Well, you're no use to anybody, you're a bum, you're a loser. And so I think that old school mentality about men and how you're not being a quote unquote real man unless you X, Y, or Z or live up to these preposterous standards, that's half the problem. Feminism's focus on women only is the other half of the problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is also just this conservative mentality that's kind of, in a way, forced onto guys, like they're forced to adopt it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even though on A Voice for Men we spend a lot of time bashing on feminists, the truth is you ask anybody on our editorial staff and they'll tell you no, underneath all that is that old school conservative mentality that feminists supposedly hate or oppose, but in point of fact, they're right about this one. The expectations conservative-minded people put on guys are and boys are huge and often crushing.
Mm.
You see that probably more in the States, probably in like religious conservative communities, but
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it everywhere. You know, you're not a shot to anybody, but I imagine your average Sun News listener or watcher
Right.
is kind of like, yeah, loser, get a job. It's like, dude, I'm 19, I just graduated from college, and there are none.
Mm. Right.
This total lack of sympathy, this total lack of empathy for the male half of the species. I actually believe we evolved as a human species with men wanting to protect and provide for children because that's what worked for thousands of years. Men
Mm-hmm.
protect and provide. This made men almost disposable. If you're not useful as a protector and provider, you're not really a man. And we haven't updated our thinking to say that that is not, we don't live in mud floor shacks and crap in outhouses anymore. Men don't need to be seeing themselves or each other as disposable utilities, and women shouldn't be looking at men that way either. But we still
Mm-hmm.
do that. Conservative or liberal, everybody seems to think that way, and we need to end that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Um, And I guess it's interesting that Movember kind of brings back this mustache, which is kind of associated with like this traditional conservative male, but at the same time is asking us to kind of rethink men's health, I guess, or
Just think of, frankly, I'd say it. Just plain think about men.
Just think about men. Yeah.
I really, I mean, that's where I ultimately get out of it. Wow, men matter too. That's the main thing I like about it.
Because we're so used to thinking that men don't need any help and just are
That's right.
supposed to stuff it out and man it up, so to speak, right?
Right. The next guy tells me to man up, I'm going to tell him to go to hell. So, yeah.
Cool. All right, awesome, man. I think those are all my questions. You think there's something I missed that you want to add, or?
Nothing I can think of, but feel free to call on me anytime, and let me know when it comes out, huh? I'll make sure to give you guys a link.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll definitely I'll email you and tweet it at you.